I never believed in ghosts until the day one handed me the key to my shattered world. It was a rainy afternoon in late autumn, the kind that soaks through your coat and chills your bones in Charlottesville, Virginia. I was rummaging through the dusty attic of my grandmother's old Victorian estate. Well, what used to be hers, or so I thought, when my fingers brushed against something cold and metallic behind a loose floorboard. A small, ornate key, engraved with the initials E.M. Eleanor May, my grandmother. My heart skipped a beat. I'd come here alone, sneaking past the new owners, to say goodbye to the place that held every summer memory of my childhood. But this key? It felt like a whisper from the grave, pulling me into a nightmare I never saw coming. My name is Lila Harper, and at 35, a single mom scraping by as an archivist in a dusty library downtown, I thought my biggest battles were raising my 8-year-old son Theo and paying the rent. Little did I know, my own blood was about to betray me in ways that would test every ounce of my soul. That key unlocked more than a door. It unlocked a truth buried under layers of lies and greed. You see, my grandmother Eleanor wasn't just any woman. She was the matriarch of the Harper family, a widow who'd turned our sprawling estate on the outskirts of town into a beacon for the community. Back in the 70s, she'd started the Harper Foundation, funneling money from the estate's vineyards and antique collections into scholarships for underprivileged kids in Albemarle County. She always said I was her legacy, the one who'd carry on her work. "Lila, my dear," she'd whisper during those endless summer evenings on the porch, her voice like warm honey over iced tea. "This place isn't about bricks and mortar. It's about giving back what the world takes." I believed her. God, I believed her. But 3 months ago, when she passed at 92 from a quiet heart that finally gave out, everything changed. The will reading in her lawyer's stuffy office downtown was supposed to be a formality. Instead, it was the first knife in my back. Uncle Richard, my father's older brother, the golden boy of the family, stood there with his slick suit and smug grin, flanked by his 2 grown kids, my cousins Jenna and Mark. Richard's always been the shark in the water, a real estate mogul who'd clawed his way from our modest roots in rural Virginia to penthouses in Richmond. He looked down on us, lesser Harpers, as he called us behind closed doors. My dad died young, in a car accident when I was 10, leaving Mom to raise me on waitress tips and sheer grit. Richard? He swooped in like a vulture after the funeral, helping with money that came with strings. But that day, with the lawyer droning on, Richard produced a will that named him and his spawn as sole heirs to the estate, the foundation, everything. "Eleanor's final wishes," he said, his voice dripping with false piety. Jenna and Mark, whom I'd grown up with, sharing secrets under the willow tree, racing bikes down the gravel drive, nodded along like bobbleheads. No questions, no glances my way. Just cold, calculated silence. I felt the room spin. "This can't be right," I stammered, my voice cracking like dry leaves. Theo was at home with a sitter, and I'd promised him we'd celebrate Grandma's memory with her famous apple pie. Instead, I was being erased. The lawyer shrugged, saying the document was notarized, ironclad. Richard patted my shoulder, patted it, like I was a child throwing a tantrum. "Chin up, Lila. Family takes care of family." But as I stormed out into the pouring rain, tears mixing with the downpour, I knew it was a lie. That night, hugging Theo close in our cramped apartment, his little arms around my neck, I whispered promises I wasn't sure I could keep. "We'll be okay, buddy. Mommy's got this." But inside, betrayal burned like acid. How could they? Jenna, who'd cried on my shoulder when her marriage fell apart last year. Mark, who texted me memes about our wild childhood escapades just weeks ago, And Richard, God, the man who'd bullied my dad into silence for years, calling him weak for not chasing the big bucks. This wasn't inheritance. It was theft. The days blurred into a haze of grief and fury. I threw myself into work at the county library, cataloging forgotten manuscripts, but every yellowed page reminded me of Grandma's stories. Theo noticed, of course. Kids always do. "Mommy, why are you sad?" he'd ask, his big brown eyes, Grandma's eyes, searching mine. I'd force a smile, baking cookies that tasted like ash, but that key, it haunted me. A week after the reading, I couldn't take it anymore. Under the cover of night, I drove back to the estate. Richard had already slapped a for sale sign on the wrought iron gates, the vines I'd helped tend as a teen now wilting under neglect. My hands shook as I slipped the key into an old garden shed's lock. Inside, amid cobwebs and rusted tools, was a hidden compartment. And there, tucked in a velvet pouch, was a letter. Grandma's handwriting, elegant loops and all. "My dearest Lila, if you're reading this, trust has been broken. The real will is in the safe behind the portrait in the study. Fight for what's right, my girl. Legacy isn't given. Say it's claimed." Tears streamed down my face as I clutched that letter. It was dated just 2 weeks before she died, her signature shaky but sure. A surprise hit me like a thunderclap. This wasn't just a hint, it was a battle cry. But proof? I needed more than words on paper. As an archivist, I knew records didn't lie. The next morning, heart pounding, I called in sick and headed to the county courthouse. Feigning research for a family history project, I pulled estate files, foundation ledgers. What I found made my blood run cold. Richard had been siphoning funds from the Harper Foundation for years. Fake consulting fees to his own companies, scholarships that went to his cronies' kids. Embezzlement, plain and simple. And the will? The notarization date was off by a month, the notary's seal from a firm Richard owned. Forgery. My cousins' names were on transfer documents, signing away my rights for a promised cut. Betrayal twisted deeper. They'd sold me out for a slice of the pie. Surprise number 2 came that evening. Theo's school called. I'd forgotten pickup. Rushing there, I found him in the office, sniffling. "Mommy, a man came looking for you." My stomach dropped. Richard? But no, it was a reporter from the Charlottesville Daily Progress, Sarah Klein. She'd heard whispers about the estate sale and wanted a quote from the disenfranchised granddaughter. Desperate, I spilled everything over coffee at a diner, the letter trembling in my hand. Sarah's eyes lit up. "This could be huge, Lila. But we need ironclad proof." Character evolution started there, in that greasy booth. The old Lila, the one who avoided conflict, who let Richard bully her into silence after Dad's death, began to fade. I felt a fire ignite, not just anger, but purpose. For Theo, for Grandma, for every kid the foundation had helped. "Let's do it," I said, my voice steady for the first time in months. The investigation became my lifeline. Days turned to weeks of clandestine digs. I posed as a potential buyer to tour the estate, slipping into the study when Richard's realtor stepped out for a call. Behind Grandma's portrait, her stern gaze following me, I found the safe. The key fit perfectly. Inside, the real will, dated properly, leaving everything to me with instructions to expand the foundation. My hands shook as I photographed every page, but emotions crashed over me like waves. Joy at the vindication, sorrow for the lies, rage at Richard's audacity. That night, alone in my apartment, I broke down, sobbing into Theo's blanket. "Why, Grandma? Why didn't you tell me sooner? But then Theo crawled into my lap, his small hand on my cheek. You're strong like Nana, he said. In that moment, I evolved. No more victim. I was the archivist unearthing history's truths and my own. Partnering with Sarah was a whirlwind of surprises. She introduced me to a forensic accountant who confirmed the embezzlement trails led straight to Richard's offshore accounts. We uncovered emails between him and the crooked notary, casual as if plotting a golf game. Handle the will, and the Harper girl won't know what hit her. My cousins? Jenna's text to Mark. Dad says it's for the family good. Lila's too soft anyway. The sting was visceral, a punch to the gut. We'd shared everything. First crushes, midnight feasts of stolen pie. Now they were pawns in Richard's game, but willing ones. I confronted Jenna first over a tense phone call. How could you? I whispered, voice breaking. She hesitated, then, Lila, it's business. Dad promised us security. No remorse, just justification. I hung up, heart fracturing, but it fueled me. No more blind trust. Family wasn't blood. It was choice. As we built the case, emotions peaked. Richard caught wind, started harassing calls, his voice oily. Drop it, Lila, or you'll regret it. Threats to my job, to Theo's school. Fear gripped me, nights sleepless, but Sarah's encouragement and Theo's innocent faith kept me going. Mommy's a detective, he'd cheer, drawing pictures of me with a magnifying glass. Character growth bloomed. I volunteered at a local shelter, channeling Grandma's spirit, seeing how one act of kindness rippled. Surprises kept coming. Turns out, the Foundation's board had suspicions but feared Richard's influence. One member, old Mr. Hargrove, slipped me internal audits. Eleanor trusted you, he said. Allies emerged from shadows. The climax hit like a storm on a crisp October morning. Sarah's article dropped. Harper empire built on lies, forged will, and stolen charity exposed. Front page with blurred photos of the documents. The town buzzed. Neighbors who'd known Grandma rallying. Petitions circulating. Richard's office was swarmed by feds. Embezzlement charges stuck like glue. I watched from afar as he was cuffed outside his mansion, his face crumpling. Not the shark, but a cornered rat. Jenna and Mark, they called, voices trembling. Lila, we didn't know the extent. Lies. I met them at the estate, now mine again by court order. Redemption? I asked, voice steel. Jenna wept. Mark looked away. I offered a chance. Volunteer at the new community center I'd turned the place into. Prove their hearts. But trust? Shattered. Actions, not words, I said. They nodded, but I saw the doubt. Forgiveness flickered, but boundaries hardened. I'd evolved into a woman who protected her legacy, not just inherited it. The ending washed over me like spring rain after winter's bite. The estate, restored, buzzed with life. Kids in after-school programs, artists in the old barn, scholarships flowing anew. Theo ran through the gardens, laughing, the sound I'd fought for. Standing on the porch where Grandma once stood, I felt her presence, a soft breeze carrying approval. Satisfaction bloomed, deep and real. Betrayal had scarred me, but truth healed. I'd claimed not just land, but power. The power to rebuild, to choose family wisely. Jenna and Mark showed up sporadically, tentative steps toward amends, but I kept my guard. Richard? Prison suit suited him. Justice, after all, had a way of echoing. As the sun sets on this chapter of my life, I realize that legacies aren't locked in safes or scribbled on paper. They live in the choices we make when the world tries to bury us. And to you, dear listener, Thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining me on this journey through shadows and light. Your time means the world to someone like me, piecing together truths in the dark. If this story touched you, stirred that fire within, please like, share, and subscribe for more real tales of resilience and redemption. Together, we uncover what's hidden, one echo at a time.